It was a freezing March evening in Akron, Ohio. The kind of cold that seeps through your coat and settles into your bones, making every step feel heavier than the last. I dragged myself up the concrete stairs to our 2-bedroom rental apartment on the east side, my legs screaming after a grueling 12-hour shift at the logistics company. My lower back throbbed with that dull, persistent ache that comes from sitting at a desk for too long, hunched over spreadsheets and shipping manifests. All I wanted was to collapse on my bed, maybe heat up some leftover pasta, and pass out before my alarm went off at 5:30 the next morning. But the moment I pushed through the apartment door, the atmosphere stopped me cold. The air inside was thick, suffocating. Not with humidity or heat, the radiator had been acting up again, but with a heavy, oppressive mood that made your shoulders tense before you even understood why. My mother, Marla Price, was sitting on the sofa, her hand pressed against her forehead as if she were enduring a violent migraine. Scattered across the coffee table were envelopes I recognized all too well. "Mom?" I called out softly, a sudden spike of anxiety tightening my chest. She looked up. Her eyes were rimmed with red, swimming with unshed tears. There was no rage, no screaming. Just a profound, crumbling breakdown that made my stomach twist with immediate sympathy. "I'm sorry, Reagan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I tried. I swear I tried. But this world, it just wants to crush us both." She nudged a stack of bills toward me with a shaking hand. "They're asking for money again. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel so useless. Maybe it would be better if I just wasn't here. Maybe then you wouldn't have to deal with such a burden." My hands shook as I picked up the closest one. Electric bill, past due, $320. Another one, water and sewage, past due, $215. Credit card minimum payment, $460. Cell phone, $255. Cable and internet, $200. I did the math automatically, my brain still in work mode. $1,450 total. I looked up at her, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the exhaustion dragging at my eyelids. "But Mom, my paycheck, I just gave you money for bills." Her expression shifted in a split second. The fragility evaporated, replaced by a look so sharp and cold it felt like a physical slap. "Your paycheck?" Her voice hardened, the pity instantly transforming into a weapon. "You think that little bit of money is enough to make up for everything I've sacrificed? I sold my youth for this family. I gave up everything. And now, when I need just a little help, you're going to count pennies with me?" I stood there, frozen, the electric bill crumping in my hand. The whiplash from her emotional pivot left me reeling. This was the real Marla Price. A master of shifting from victim to executioner in a single breath. The exhaustion in my body transformed into something else, something cold and sharp that spread from my chest outward, numbing everything it touched. A dull, throbbing pain that had nothing to do with physical tiredness and everything to do with the sudden, crushing weight of understanding. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even speak. A terrifying silence enveloped the apartment, broken only by the hiss of the struggling radiator and the distant sound of traffic on the street below. To understand why that moment was the breaking point, I have to go back. Back 6 years, to when I was 18 and naive in the way that only someone who's never been betrayed can be. I was born and raised in Akron. After Dad left when I was 10, it was just Mom and me in this apartment. We managed. It wasn't easy, but we managed. When I turned 18, fresh out of high school and about to start community college, Mom sat me down at our kitchen table with paperwork spread out between us. "You're an adult now," she'd said, her voice warm and maternal in a way I rarely heard. "That means we need to get you set up properly. Joint bank account, so I can help you manage your money while you're in school. And I'll keep your important documents, social security card, birth certificate, all that somewhere safe. You'll lose them in a dorm room or something." I'd nodded eagerly, grateful to have a mother who cared so much about my future, who wanted to help me navigate the complicated world of adult finances. What an idiot I'd been. I started working at a Speedway gas station during my freshman year of college, taking night shifts and weekend mornings to help pay for textbooks and contribute to household expenses. At 21, I'd landed what felt like a miracle, an administrative data entry role at a logistics company in the Akron suburbs. They didn't require a credit check, just my willingness to work hard and learn their inventory management system. $16 an hour. it felt like winning the lottery. I'd been carrying this entire family ever since. I was 19 when the factory where Mom worked shut down. Budget cuts, overseas manufacturing, the usual story. She'd been devastated, and I'd been sympathetic. Of course I was. She was my mother. So when she said she was having trouble finding new work, when she said she needed time, when she said she'd handle the finances while she looked for employment, I'd believed her. From that moment on, she depended entirely on me. Every single month, without fail, I paid $900 for rent, $250 for utilities. Groceries came out of my paycheck too, usually another $300, sometimes more if Mom wanted something special. Mom kept my debit card. She controlled the mailbox, collecting everything before I got home from work. She'd set up paperless statements using her own email address, so I never saw bank balances or credit card bills or anything that might reveal the truth. If you're going to college, she'd always said, her voice so reasonable, so parental, you have to learn to take financial responsibility like an adult. This is how you learn. And I'd believed her. For 6 years, I'd believed every word. Standing in that living room, watching the contempt in her eyes, I finally learned. I walked past her, my movements slow and deliberate. Down the short hallway to my bedroom, I pulled my old duffel bag from the closet and started packing. Clothes. My laptop ancient and barely functional but mine. Toiletries. My phone charger. And one crucial item, a framed photograph of Dad and me at a county fair when I was 8 years old, both of us grinning at the camera with cotton candy-stained mouths. Mom appeared in my doorway. What do you think you're doing? I didn't answer. I didn't even look at her. I just kept packing, my hands steady despite the storm raging in my chest. Reagan. Reagan, I'm talking to you. I zipped the duffel bag closed, slung it over my shoulder, and turned to face her. Our eyes met for a long moment. I saw confusion there, then anger, then something that might have been fear. I walked past her, out of my bedroom, through the living room, still scattered with those hateful bills, and out the front door. I didn't say a single word. Not goodbye. Not an explanation. Nothing. Behind me, I heard her voice, shrill and disbelieving. You can't just leave. Reagan, get back here. But I was already halfway down the stairs, heading into the freezing March night. Natalie Brooks lived 7 blocks away in a slightly better neighborhood, still East Akron, but with newer buildings and actual streetlights that worked. We'd been best friends since middle school. The kind of friendship that survives everything. Bad boyfriends, worse decisions, and years of drifting schedules. When she opened her door at 9:30 that night and saw me standing there with my duffel bag and probably a shell-shocked expression, she didn't ask questions. She just pulled me inside, made tea I didn't drink, and set me up on her sofa with blankets and pillows. You don't have to talk about it tonight, she said quietly, squeezing my shoulder. But tomorrow, we're going to figure this out. I nodded, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. That night, lying on Natalie's sofa in the dark, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of her apartment building, I stared at the ceiling and knew with absolute certainty that I had just ignited a war. A war I didn't understand yet, didn't know the full scope of. But I would. Oh, I would. 7 days of silence acted as a buffer before I gathered the courage to return. I had spent that week sleeping on Natalie's sofa, going to work with my head down, avoiding my phone every time Mom's number flashed across the screen. She'd called 37 times in 7 days. I'd answered exactly 0 of them. I'd timed my return carefully. Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m., when I knew Mom would be out. She had a standing appointment with her unemployment counselor every Thursday, not that she ever seemed to actually look for work, but the appointments were mandatory if she wanted to keep receiving benefits. The apartment was cold when I let myself in with my key. Colder than usual, which meant Mom hadn't been paying the heating bill either. The living room was a disaster zone, takeout containers piled on the coffee table, dirty dishes in the sink, the bills I'd left scattered on the floor now kicked into corners and under furniture. I moved quickly through my bedroom, throwing the rest of my clothes into garbage bags, unplugging my ancient desk lamp, grabbing books and the few personal items I'd accumulated over 24 years of existence. It didn't amount to much. My life fit into 4 garbage bags and a cardboard box. I was searching the hall closet, specifically looking for my heavy winter boots, when I saw it. pushed way back in the corner, hidden behind Mom's winter coats and a broken vacuum cleaner. Another cardboard box, smaller than the one holding my books, sealed with packing tape that had yellowed with age. Curiosity overrode common sense. I pulled it out, used my keys to slice through the tape, and opened it. My world collapsed. Inside were piles of mail. Envelopes, statements, bills, all addressed to Reagan Price at this address, all marked with dates spanning the last 3 years, all unopened. My hands started trembling as I pulled them out one by one. Credit card statement from Capital One. Balance, $8,300. Another credit card from Discover. Balance, $6,200. A consumer loan from some company I'd never heard of. Balance, $4,100. Store cards, medical bills for procedures I'd never had, cash advances I'd never taken, every single one in my name. Reagan Price. I dropped the pile and scrambled for my laptop, my fingers clumsy on the keyboard as I navigated to Experian's website. Mom had always prevented me from checking my credit score, always said it would hurt my rating to look too often, that she was monitoring it for me. Another lie in a tower of lies. I created an account, went through the verification questions, held my breath as the page loaded. The number that appeared made my vision swim. Total debt, $27,800. $27,800. I scrolled down with numb fingers, reading through the list of accounts. They'd been opened sporadically over 3 years, from when I was 21 to 23. Some I recognized from the box: the Capital One card, the Discover card. Others were new revelations: personal loans, retail store cards, a car loan for a vehicle I'd never seen. I clicked on the details of the Capital One account, downloaded the statements. Luxury expenses jumped out at me: designer purse purchases, expensive restaurant bills, cash withdrawals at casino ATMs, jewelry stores. None of it mine. All of it signed with a version of my signature that was close but not quite right, the loops too tight, the slant too aggressive. My mother's handwriting. Clumsily forged, but apparently good enough to fool creditors who didn't look too closely. I sat on the floor by that closet, surrounded by evidence of the most profound betrayal I could imagine, and felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart that was still too numb with shock. Something deeper. Some fundamental trust in the basic order of the world. I took the box. All of it. Every piece of mail, every statement, every bill. I shoved it into the largest garbage bag along with printed copies of my credit report, and I left that apartment for what I knew would be the last time as a resident. Back at Natalie's house, I spread everything out on her kitchen table. She'd come home from her shift at the hospital. She was a medical billing clerk, and found me sitting there, staring at the paper avalanche in front of me. "Reagan, look at this," she breathed, taking in the scope of it. "What?" "My mother," I said, my voice flat and distant even to my own ears. "My mother did this. All of it. She opened credit cards in my name, took out loans in my name, forged my signature, and then hid the bills so I'd never know." Natalie sank into the chair across from me, her eyes wide with horror. "That's identity theft. That's a felony." "That's my mother," I repeated and started laughing. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone whose reality had just shattered into 1,000 pieces and was still trying to figure out which pieces were real. Natalie reached across the table and grabbed my hand, squeezing hard enough to hurt. The pain grounded me, pulled me back from whatever edge I'd been teetering on. "Listen to me," she said, her voice firm in a way I'd rarely heard. "You cannot let this slide. You can't pay this debt. You can't protect her. You have to fight." "I don't know how," I whispered. "Then we'll figure it out together. But first, you need a lawyer." The Legal Aid Center of Akron operated out of a converted house on the south side, staffed by overworked attorneys who took cases for people who couldn't afford representation. Natalie called ahead, pulled some strings through a friend, and got me an emergency appointment for Friday morning. Ellen Crawford was probably in her mid-40s, with steel gray hair cut in a practical bob and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and studied me for a long moment. "This is severe financial fraud," she said finally. "Elder abuse and parental exploitation. Your mother committed identity theft against her own daughter. That's not just civil liability, that's criminal. What do I do?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. Ellen leaned forward, her expression grave but determined. You need to understand something, Reagan. Fighting this means going to war with your mother. It means filing police reports, potentially pressing charges. It means she could face jail time. Can you handle that? Could I? I thought about 6 years of exploitation, of working myself to exhaustion while she sat at home, spending money I'd earned on things I'd never see, of the trust she'd violated, the future she'd stolen from me, of the $27,800 in debt that would follow me for years, destroying any chance I had at a normal life. Yes, I said. Tell me what to do. Ellen nodded, a hint of approval in her eyes. First, we document everything. Then we go to the police. The Akron Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit operated out of a gray building that smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. The detective who took my report was a woman named Courtney Cole, compact and professional, who'd clearly seen this kind of case before. You'd be surprised how common this is, she said as I signed my statement. Parents taking out credit in their kids' names. It's one of the hardest types of fraud to prosecute because of the family element. But your case is particularly egregious. The amount, the duration, the forged signatures, you've got solid evidence. She handed me a copy of the police report. Keep this. You'll need it for everything that comes next. Next was the Federal Trade Commission. Ellen had given me step-by-step instructions. Fill out the identity theft affidavit, submit it online, get the confirmation number. It took an hour, filling in every detail, attaching scanned copies of the forged documents. Then came the credit freezes. I called Equifax first, then Experian, then TransUnion. Each time, I provided the police report number, my identification, and requested an immediate freeze on my credit file. No more accounts could be opened in my name. The damage was done, but at least I could stop it from getting worse. By the time I finished, it was dark outside. I sat in Natalie's living room, surrounded by copies of forms and confirmation numbers and police reports, and felt the first stirring of something that wasn't despair or shock. It was anger. Cold, focused, righteous anger. Over the next week, I became intimately familiar with the dispute process. Ellen had given me template letters, and I modified them for each creditor, attaching copies of the police report and identity theft affidavit. Dear Capital One, I am writing to dispute the account ending in 4782. This account was opened fraudulently using my personal information without my knowledge or consent. Attached, please find a copy of the police report filed with the Akron Police Department and my FTC identity theft affidavit. I sent them certified mail, return receipt requested. I made spreadsheets tracking every account, every dispute, every deadline. My laptop stayed open on Natalie's coffee table, a command center for my counteroffensive. The text messages from Mom started the day after I'd taken the box. Where are my bills? Reagan, answer your phone. How dare you go through my things? You're being ridiculous. Come home. Fine. Cut me off. See how that works out for you. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I screenshot every single one and saved them in a folder labeled Evidence. On Monday, I went to a different bank branch across town and opened a new checking account. Just in my name, no joint access. I submitted new direct deposit paperwork at work, routing my paycheck to an account my mother couldn't touch. For the first time in 6 years, my money was actually mine. I was building a fortress. A legal fortress made of police reports and credit freezes and documented evidence. Every piece of mail I'd found, every forged signature, every threatening text message, all of it carefully organized, cataloged, protected. But I wasn't naive. I knew Mom wouldn't just accept this. She'd depended on my income for too long, had gotten too comfortable with her lifestyle of takeout and cable television, and whatever else she'd been spending my money on. The war had started with me walking out, but it was about to escalate into something neither of us could walk away from. And I was ready. The calendar pages turned, blurring into a stretch of 60 days filled with shifts and strategy. I'd settled into a rhythm at Natalie's place, working my shifts at the logistics company, sleeping on her couch, and methodically building my case against Mom like I was preparing for trial. The police report was filed. The FTC complaint was submitted. My credit was frozen solid. I was winning, slowly, but winning. Then my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in years. Dad. Walter Price, the man who supposedly abandoned us to starve, according to Mom's carefully curated victim narrative, the man I'd been taught to resent for leaving me alone with her. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won out. Reagan? His voice was older, rougher around the edges, but unmistakably him. Yeah, I kept my tone neutral, guarded. I know this is out of the blue. I heard through the grapevine that you and your mother had a falling out. I'd like to meet with you. There's something you need to see. Every instinct screamed trap, but there was something in his voice, not manipulation, not guilt-tripping, just weariness. And maybe honesty. Fine. Coffee shop near my old high school. Saturday at 2. I'll be there. Saturday came with that particular chill that cuts through your jacket and settles in your bones. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, ordered a black coffee I didn't really want, and claimed a corner booth where I could watch the door. Dad walked in at exactly 2. He'd aged more than the years should account for. His hair had gone almost completely silver, and the lines around his eyes were deep trenches now. But those eyes, sharp, clear, tired, were exactly as I remembered them from when I was 8 years old and he'd taken that last photo with me before leaving. He spotted me immediately, bought himself a coffee, and slid into the booth across from me without preamble. "You look good," he said. "Stronger than I expected." "Cut the small talk, Dad. Why am I here?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Still direct. I always appreciated that about you." He reached into a worn leather messenger bag and pulled out a thick document folder. The label read, Price v. Price, Dissolution of Marriage. He placed it on the table between us like it was evidence in a murder trial. "I know what your mother is doing," he said quietly. "She did the same thing when I was still there." My coffee sat forgotten as he opened the folder. Page after page of legal documents, financial statements, payment receipts. He pointed to specific sections with the precision of someone who'd reviewed these papers 1,000 times. Divorce settlement agreement, finalized 6 years ago. See this? His finger tapped a highlighted paragraph. "I paid off all joint debts, every single one. Credit cards, car loan, medical bills, $22,000 total. Cleared before the divorce was final." My heart was starting to pound. And here, he flipped to another section. Full alimony. $1,500 a month for 3 years. That's $54,000, Reagan. Paid in full, every month, on time. I have the bank statements to prove it. The math hit me like a physical blow. $54,000. Over 3 years. While Mom told me we were barely surviving, that Dad had left us with nothing, that I needed to contribute every cent I earned because we were drowning. She told me you abandoned us, I said, and my voice came out smaller than I intended. I know she did. Dad's expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the old pain there. Your mother has a gift for rewriting history. By the time I left, I was $12,000 in debt from covering her spending. Credit cards I didn't know existed. Store accounts opened in my name. Sound familiar? It sounded exactly like what she'd done to me. Why didn't you fight for custody? The question came out raw, accusatory. I tried, but I was working 60-hour weeks trying to dig out of the hole she'd created. She painted me as the absent father, the one who cared more about work than family, and maybe she was right about that part. I was so focused on surviving financially that I lost you in the process. He paused, his jaw tight. That's my regret. But I won't let her make you believe I didn't provide. The money was there, Reagan. She just spent it on herself instead of stabilizing your lives. He pushed a stack of bank statements toward me. Highlighted entries showed regular deposits to an account in Mom's name. $1,500. Like clockwork. For 36 months. Your mother has a pattern. Dad continued, his voice harder now. She uses people to cover her spending. She'll drain you dry and then cry victim when you finally cut her off. You have to protect yourself. I already am, I said. Police report, fraud complaints, credit freeze. I'm doing everything right. Good. He nodded, approval clear in his expression. But understand this, I won't pay the debt for you. I can't. I spent 7 years rebuilding my credit and my life after she destroyed both. I'm giving you the truth and the evidence to clear your name. That's all I can offer. It should have hurt more, that final rejection. But honestly, it was the most honest thing anyone had said to me in years. No false promises. No heroic rescue fantasy. Just reality. I'm not asking you to save me, I said. I just needed to know the truth. Now you have it. He stood, shouldering his bag. One more thing, she'll never admit fault. Not to you, not to herself. She'll blame me until her last breath. Don't wait for an apology that'll never come. He left a business card on the table with his phone number, then walked out of the coffee shop and out of my life again. But this time, it didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like closure. I sat there for another hour, reading through the divorce documents page by page. Every highlighted section was another lie exposed, another manipulation unraveled. Mom hadn't been the victim of Dad's neglect. She'd been the architect of her own problems, and she'd tried to make me the next foundation to build on. That night, back at Natalie's place, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. The guilt that had been eating at me since I walked out, the nagging voice that said maybe I was the ungrateful daughter, maybe I should have tried harder, was gone. I'd achieved something I didn't even know I needed: emotional independence. Mom wasn't my responsibility. She never had been. The next morning, I sat at Natalie's kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of coffee that actually tasted good this time, and I went to war. Email number 1. Grant Hollister, landlord of the East Akron apartment. Mr. Hollister. Attached, please find 1. Copy of police fraud report, case number AK 2024-8847, documenting identity theft by Marla Price. 2. Confirmation letter from legal aid attorney Ellen Crawford, verifying fraudulent use of my signature and personal information. I am formally requesting immediate removal of my name from the lease agreement for the property at address. I have not resided at this location since March, and was fraudulently listed as a co-tenant without my knowledge or consent. Please confirm receipt and advise on next steps. Reagan Price. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Grant replied within 4 hours. Short, professional, exactly what I needed. Miss Price. Thank you for providing documentation. Based on the evidence of fraud, I am approving your request. Effective next month, Marla Price will be the sole legal tenant and financially responsible party for the lease. Updated agreement to follow. Grant Hollister. 1 down. Next target: utilities, electric company, water, gas. I drafted similar emails to each, attaching the police report and Ellen's letter, explaining that I was a victim of identity theft and requesting immediate removal of my name from all accounts. The responses came back over the next week, each one a small victory. Account holder name updated. Marla Price now sole responsible party. If no payment arrangements are made within 7 days, service disconnection will proceed per company policy. I was pulling the rug out from under her, and I felt no guilt whatsoever. Mom wanted to play the victim? Fine. Let her be the victim of her own choices for once. It took 4 weeks for the fallout to settle, and when the bomb finally exploded, I was ready. My phone rang at 7:00 the morning, Mom's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, poured myself coffee, got dressed for work, and listened to the message during my commute. Her voice was pure panic, shrill and accusatory in equal measure. Reagan, what did you do? The electricity is off, the gas is off. I can't cook, I can't see, I'm freezing in here. And the landlord is demanding $1,980 in back rent. You did this. You sabotaged me. Call me back right now. I deleted the voicemail and went to work. She called 6 more times that day. I ignored every single one. That evening, she tried a different tactic. The call came from Aunt Lorraine's number. Reagan Marie Price, you answer this phone right now. Aunt Lorraine's voice could strip paint off walls. She was Mom's older sister, lived in the nice part of North Akron with Uncle Richard, and had always treated Mom like a helpless baby bird who needed constant protection. I answered, because I knew this was coming and I was ready for it. Hi, Aunt Lorraine. Don't you hi me. What is this I hear about you abandoning your mother, leaving her without electricity, letting her get evicted? I raised you better than this. You didn't raise me at all, I thought, but I kept my voice calm. I didn't abandon anyone. I stopped paying for someone else's expenses. Mom is an adult who can pay her own bills. She can't afford it, She's struggling, and you just walked away like she meant nothing to you. Aunt Lorraine was warming up now, hitting her stride. After everything she sacrificed for you, working her fingers to the bone. Mom hasn't had a job in 3 years. Silence. Then, that's not the point. She raised you alone after your father abandoned you both. Dad paid $54,000 in alimony over 3 years. Mom spent it on herself instead of stabilizing our lives. I have the bank statements to prove it. You're lying. You've always been ungrateful, just like your father. Your mother is sitting in the dark right now, Reagan. In the dark. Because of you. The guilt trip was professional grade. I had to give her that. But I'd been inoculated against it by Dad's folder of truth. Mom is sitting in the dark because she didn't pay the electric bill. I said evenly. She has the same 24 hours in a day that I do. She can get a job. You are a selfish, heartless child, Aunt Lorraine was shouting now. Your mother needs you. My mother needs to take responsibility for herself. I hung up. The calls kept coming over the next 2 days. Aunt Lorraine, Uncle Richard, doing his disappointed father figure routine. Even my cousin Mallory sent a long text about family loyalty and how I was breaking Mom's heart. They all believed the same story. Sacrificial mother, abandoned and betrayed by ungrateful daughter. Poor Marla, suffering because her child turned her back in her hour of need. None of them asked for my side. None of them questioned Mom's narrative. They just assumed I was the villain, because that's the role Mom had written for me. Fine, let them believe it. I had a better plan. On Thursday evening, Aunt Lorraine called again. This time, her tone was different, less aggressive, more strategic. Reagan, we need to talk about this as a family. Your uncle and I think it would be best if we all sat down together this weekend. Saturday afternoon at our house. You can explain your side, your mother can explain hers, and we can work this out like adults. It was a trap, obviously. They expected me to show up, get overwhelmed by family pressure, and fold. They thought they could shame me back into being Mom's ATM. But I heard something else in Aunt Lorraine's voice. Certainty. She was absolutely convinced that Mom was telling the truth, and I was just being a rebellious, selfish kid. Which meant they hadn't seen any evidence yet. They were operating on pure emotion and Mom's performance. This was my opportunity. Okay, I said slowly, like I was reluctant. I'll come. But I want to explain everything. I want everyone to hear the whole story. Of course, dear. Aunt Lorraine's voice went instantly warm, victorious. She thought she'd won. Saturday at 2. We'll have coffee and we'll sort this all out. Your mother just wants her daughter back. I'll be there, I said. I hung up and immediately texted Natalie. Family ambush scheduled for Saturday. I'm going in. Her response was instant. Are you sure about this? Absolutely. Time to burn it all down. Saturday morning, I prepared like I was going into battle. Because I was. I printed every document, the police report, the FTC complaint confirmation, the credit report showing $27,800 in fraudulent debt, the emails from the landlord and utility companies, Dad's divorce settlement agreement, with the alimony payment schedule and bank statements, Ellen Crawford's letter, confirming identity theft. I organized everything into a folder, each section tabbed and labeled. I dressed professionally, black pants, white blouse, hair pulled back. I wanted to look composed, credible, unshakable. Natalie drove me to Aunt Lorraine's house in the suburbs. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained lawns, the kind of neighborhood where people put up elaborate Christmas decorations and had block parties. You want me to wait out here? Natalie asked. No, come back in 2 hours. This won't take long. She squeezed my hand. Burn it down, babe. I walked up the driveway carrying my folder like it was a briefcase full of evidence. Because it was. Aunt Lorraine opened the door before I could knock, her smile warm and welcoming and completely fake. Reagan! Come in! Come in! Everyone's in the living room. Everyone was indeed in the living room. Mom sat on the couch looking small and fragile, her eyes red like she'd been crying for days. Uncle Richard stood by the fireplace with his arms crossed, playing the stern patriarch. Cousin Mallory perched on the armchair, her expression sympathetic, but wary. And they all looked at me like I was the problem that needed fixing. And then there was Mom. She'd claimed the center of the couch like it was a stage, tissues clutched in one hand, the other pressed dramatically to her chest. Her eyes were already red-rimmed, though I suspected the tears were more strategic than genuine. I'd seen this performance before, the wronged woman routine, the abandoned wife special. She was good at it, I'd give her that much. "I'm so glad you're all here," Mom began, her voice quavering just enough to pull at heartstrings. "I've been trying to reach Reagan for weeks, but she won't return my calls. She's turned her back on me just like her father did." Aunt Lorraine's face softened with sympathy. "Marla, honey, Walter destroyed this family," Mom continued, building momentum. "He walked away from 23 years of marriage without looking back. Left me with nothing. And now Reagan, the daughter I sacrificed everything for, she's siding with him. She's abandoned me too." The words hung in the air like poison. I watched Aunt Lorraine's expression shift, disappointment creeping into her features as she glanced my way. Uncle Richard's jaw tightened. Mallory wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom was winning. She thought she controlled the narrative. She always did. "Do you know what it's like?" Mom pressed on. "To be left by your husband and then betrayed by your own child? I raised her alone for 6 years after Walter left. I gave her everything, and this is how she repays me?" I let her talk. Let her weave her web of lies, each word digging her grave a little deeper. My hands rested calmly in my lap, fingers interlaced. I'd learned something important over the past few months. The truth didn't need to shout. It just needed to show up. "Reagan, is this true?" Aunt Lorraine asked, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Have you really cut your mother off completely?" I reached down and lifted the briefcase onto my lap. The latches clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet room. "I brought some documents I think everyone should see." "Documents?" Mom's voice pitched higher, defensive. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer her. Instead, I placed the credit report on the table. The number $27,800 sat there like a scar. The room fell silent. Aunt Lorraine picked up the paper, squinting at the numbers, then slowly set it down. She didn't look at my mother. She looked at me, with a gaze full of disappointment. "Reagan," she said slowly, "I understand you're angry, but involving the police in this? Is it really necessary to be so cruel?" I froze. "Aunt Lorraine, this is theft." She forged my signature. Uncle Richard spoke up from the fireplace, his tone patronizing. "That's just how she managed to keep you fed and clothed. Maybe the method was wrong, but the intention was good. Families help each other. You don't drag your mother through the mud like this." "Managed?" I let out a sharp, joyless laugh. I pulled out the bank statements I had analyzed. She bought a Coach purse. She ate at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse 3 times a month, while I was eating instant noodles. "You call that managing?" My mother let out a loud sob. "She's twisting everything. I just wanted to keep up appearances for this family. You know how hard it is." Aunt Lorraine immediately turned to comfort Mom, then glared at me. "See? You've upset her. Put those papers away. We will handle this internally. You withdraw the police report, and your uncle and I will, and you'll see about helping her pay you back slowly." In that moment, the truth hit me. They didn't care about justice. They only wanted a false peace. They were willing to sacrifice me to keep their comfortable illusion of a happy family intact. I snapped the briefcase shut. The click echoed dryly in the room. "No," I said. "No." Lorraine looked surprised, as if she'd never heard the word before. "I didn't come here to ask for permission," I said, standing up and looking each of them in the eye. "I came to inform you. The report is filed. The police are working. And if anyone in this room tries to cover this up or harass me, I will add your name to the list of accomplices." Mom went silent. Uncle Richard's face paled. I turned and walked out. There was no apology, but the victory was sweeter than that. I had stopped seeking their approval. The consequences arrived 30 days later. Falling with the heavy precision of a gavel, Grant Hollister sent the official eviction notice. Thanks to my legal maneuvering, my name was nowhere on it. The eviction was Marla Price's burden alone. It would stain her rental history for 7 years. Simultaneously, my fraud disputes cleared. The $27,800 debt vanished from my record, and the creditors, armed with the police report, turned their predatory focus back on my mother. She faced homelessness, and a looming criminal investigation. For a moment, I wavered. Late at night, imagining her alone and desperate, a pang of guilt struck me. But then I looked at the paperwork: 6 years of control, 3 years of theft. I realized that saving her now would only restart the cycle of abuse. I chose not to intervene. One afternoon in November, a week before her eviction, she found me outside a coffee shop. She looked ruined, haggard, clothes hanging loose on her frame, hands trembling. She didn't scream this time. She grabbed my sleeve, her grip weak but desperate. "Do you still love me? Do you?" she asked, her voice shaking. I looked at her hand. The hand that had signed my name to thousands of dollars of debt. The hand that had thrown bills at me and demanded gratitude. "I do," I said, my voice flat. "But I love myself more." She froze, as if she couldn't believe her ears. "You're really leaving me like this? After everything?" You have hands. You have your health," I said, prying her fingers off my sleeve. "Save yourself." I turned my back and walked away. She called out something behind me, but the biting November wind carried it away before it could reach me. I returned to my new home, a tiny studio apartment near downtown. The rent was $620 a month, modest, but paid for with my own money. The landlady, Mrs. Higgins, had given me the keys just yesterday. I flipped the light switch. The room flooded with brightness. This was electricity in my name, paid from my account. I stood in the center of the small room, thinking about the plan I had to rebuild my credit score and finish paying my tuition. I hadn't taken revenge. I had simply refused to be used. For the first time in 24 years, standing in that quiet, bright room, I realized I finally owned my life. This was what freedom felt like.